Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the New York podcast with your hosts, Collin and Braeden Cox. And the biggest contract in the history of baseball and probably all sports at this point um, has just happened a few days ago. Mike Tauchman has signed a 1 year deal with the Chicago White Sox, and the Chicago White Sox are back for vengeance after the worst season in MLB history. Um, but no, all jokes aside, Juan Soto has signed a 765 15-year deal with the New York Mets. Goes from the Bronx to Queens. Steve Cohen throws the bag at Juan Soto, and they're here to win now. So Braden and I are going to give you our reaction to Soto leaving our Yankees. What this means for Soto, the Mets, the Yankees, and everything in between. So stay tuned here in the yard. Braden, as we record today is Tuesday, December 10th. So Soto made the announcement on, I think it was Sunday night.
Sunday
So that was
night,
December
late
8th. So
Sunday
we're
night. Yeah.
2 days later. So not super raw reaction, but still pretty recent. So Bray, yeah, give me your reaction to this. I know we talked about it like Sunday night, but we're recording today. So yeah, give me just your thoughts and reaction, and I'm sure we'll have similar feelings.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough because at least that I can remember, I don't really remember the Yankees ever losing out on a massive free agent signing, especially considering that he was on the team last year and he was he played in the World Series with that team last year. So I think both of us thought that he was going to return. Um, Largely because of the run that they went on um, in the postseason to get to the World Series. And yeah, it wasn't the greatest of efforts in the postseason by the team as a whole, but you know, he had a fantastic postseason. He's been known to really step up in the postseason. Not that he's had bad regular seasons, um, but just in general, he's a generational talent, and the blend of him being incredibly talented and only being what 25, 26 years old. I think it was 26.
Just from
um
26, yeah.
yeah, that's a recipe for success, especially in this league. Um I think, and maybe we'll disagree here, but I feel like the whole time, like there was a couple different players, like there was talks about the Dodgers and there was talks about Toronto and there were even talks about the Philadelphia Phillies, but it always felt it was the Yankees or the Mets, right?
Yeah.
And I think we knew from the jump that the Mets were probably going to outbid the Yankees strictly because Steve Cohen had the funds to do it. They don't really have any like uber wealthy or uber expensive contracts like
Mhm.
currently on their team. Like the Yankees have Judge and they've got Stanton and Cole and whatnot. So I think just by default, we knew that the Mets were going to offer more than the Yankees. But what the Yankees kind of relied on, or at least us as fans thought, was like, well, he was just in the World Series with us and he got to play with the AL MVP. Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, so that's kind of what we were relying on. It's like he got a taste of New York. He got a taste of like the love and open arms that the Yankee fan base, you know, gave him and opened themselves up to. Not that that's difficult considering how generationally good he is. Um, but I don't know, man. Like, and maybe I'm biased because I'm a Yankees fan, but like, I thought he was staying. I really did.
I thought he was staying. I mean,
He,
I would have been more surprised. I was more surprised that he went to the Mets than I would have been if he stayed with the Yankees. Because I don't know.
yeah,
I just, like you said, the Judge and him, the combo, the tandem,
yeah,
brought them to a
yeah,
World Series. Um, and it's the Yankees. It's they're the one of the history of sports most historic and successful teams, organizations of all time. But obviously, I think he wanted to be a Met. Like, I don't think, like, if he wanted to be a Yankee for what, that $5 million less than,
he would have.
like, I think he would have taken, if he wanted to stay in the Yankees, probably would have just taken 700 million. But I think he wanted to be a Met, and I think he was using the Yankees to increase the money for Steve Cohen, because I think Steve Cohen was going to outbid the Yankees no matter what.
Yeah.
Um, and always it was always going to be the Mets were always going to offer more than the Yankees. But I thought Stowe would want to stay in New York, no, or in the Bronx, I should say, no
Yeah.
matter what the price, right? Or not no matter what the price, but if it was close, if the Yankees were a little lower, you would
Yeah.
think he would have stayed in New York. But the fact that he did leave, and it wasn't even that much of a difference of a contract. I know there's like the guaranteed and the opt out after 5 years. Um, you're seeing all these reports about I don't know if you saw like the fact like security didn't let Soto's family in or something, and Soto doesn't have his own suite. I'm not really buying all that stuff. I think at the end of the day,
Don't
he
read
just
too
wanted to
deep
be.
into that stuff.
That's what I mean. That's
All
what I
that
mean.
stuff's coming up now.
Right. That's what I mean. That's
Listen,
what I'm saying. Like I'm not really digging
it's
too
a
deep into
professional
that. I think,
sports stadium.
yeah, I think he wanted to be
If
a
they don't
Met.
know who you are, you know what I mean? Like if they don't know who you are, it's not going, it's like crazy to think that like security would just be like, oh, well, I'm Juan Soto's parents.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if they don't know who you are, you're not on a list or however they handle it. I'm not saying it's not possible that didn't happen, but it's convenient that it's coming out now. So that like people
Yeah.
can, fire at the Yankees, I guess you could
Yeah.
say.
Anyway, yeah. So I just like that's what I mean. Like I don't think that had anything to do with it. I really like. I think that's kind of just like trying to stir up some drama or whatever. Like the media. I think at the end of the day, Soto wanted to be a New York Met. I don't know why. I thought he'd want to stay with Judge and try to run back, try to win another World Series because now he's with the Mets, and that's NL is definitely now a lot
Tougher.
more competitive than AL, I would say. Um, but yeah, I was just overall I was pretty shocked. I'm pretty upset, and at the end of the day, pretty like disappointed in Juan Soto.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are
I think
all
that's
fair.
kind of a low blow, a
Yeah,
little bit.
I think I think those are all fair like emotions or reactions to have because you felt like you did him like what more could we have, it's not like that the Yankees missed the playoffs or had a bad season. If those things had occurred, I think we would get it a little bit more, but like they won the conference. Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
they fell short in the World Series. Um but to the big bad Dodgers and like going in, people knew that yes, the Dodgers on paper are the better team. Not that anything can happen. Like, anything can happen. The Yankees could have totally, won that had they, played their cards a little bit better across the board. But we're not going to get into that.
Hmm.
Um, but it's, it is tough just because of how good he is. The season you just had. And just overall, it's tough to lose out on somebody that like would have been in Monument Park next to Judge. Like that's the easiest way to put it. Like this guy would have been a Hall of Famer Yankee for sure. He would have been in
Hmm.
Monument Park next to Judge. Um, I'd put money on them at least winning one World Series in their prime. Like that would have happened. Like if they would have ran it back. Like if they got back this year with all the issues that the Yankees had this year across the board in their lineup with how hot and cold
Yeah,
it was, the fact
I
that they
think.
got there, you
Yeah,
know, God,
I was gonna say I think they knew what their issues were from
yeah,
last season. I think they would have. I think they would have even with or without Soto. You'd think they would address these issues, and obviously
yeah,
we'll see now with winter meetings and the off season and stuff. Um, but yeah, like I said, like it's just another like Soto. Even aside from being a Yankees fan, he was just fun to watch every day. You know what I mean? He had like a lot of clutch moments, a lot of fun moments, not particularly in the outfield. Um, but he had 3 homer game against the White Sox. The clutch 3-run home run against I think it was the Giants in early May.
yeah, yeah.
Had the home run that sent the Yankees to the World Series. So
Yep.
just was super fun to watch, and that's what I'm mostly bummed about because I'm not really gonna flip on the Mets on a random
No.
weeknight, right? I'd probably be either watching the Yankees or doing something else. So it kind of sucks I won't be able to get to watch him every day anymore. That's another thing. But yeah, I think just I know some people are saying maybe this whole thing was a blessing in disguise. The fact that Soto's walked away from the Bronx, because now they have more money to spend and actually restructure the roster. Get the bullpen depth they need, get a couple more arms, for the starting rotation, and get a little bit more defense as well. So I think maybe at the end of the day, if Cashman, and Steinbrenner play their cards right, I think this could not, I wouldn't want to say benefit the Yankees, but have them be a more of a complete team from top to
Yeah.
bottom, because we saw that last year. It was a huge issue where, like, it'd be Judge, Soto, and literally nothing else really except for Stanton in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Um, and then Judge wasn't so hot in the postseason, but during the regular season, it's basically Judge and Soto just carrying them. It seemed like, and when they were
Yeah.
cold, if they went cold for a couple of weeks, the Yankees would lose a bunch of games and be like, "What's going on?" Well, what was going on is the fact that when Judge and Soto, if they're cold at the same time, um,
There's nothing
but
offensively
three
going
three
on.
through nine, nothing. There's no production. So you hopefully this you know could make the Yankees, okay, let's pivot toward building a more complete roster. So Judge doesn't have to carry the whole team on his back for the fourth straight year in a row.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. And I think if you're a Yankee fan, like I think it's perfectly okay to be upset and be like, oh, like I really wanted Soto, all that. But you at this point, it's done deal. You have to have the perspective of we're gonna fix the holes in the offense. We're gonna look at first
Mm.
base. We're gonna look at left field. We're gonna look at second base. Sounds like it might be a question mark with Kleber. Um, you know, third base. Pitching. Pitching's the biggest thing, right? Um, if you go and sign Soto, it's not that you can't help in those areas, but it makes it more difficult just because $765 million went to one dude. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So I,
And
I, I totally do understand the perspective of like this in the long term could be a blessing in disguise.
right,
I'm not saying Soto's gonna fall off or anything, but we don't know
no,
what his
not at
production's
all.
gonna look
He's
like.
a generational player. We're not taking that away from him at all.
No, of course not, right?
Right.
But that $765 million could go to like legitimately like five very good free agents.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, Soto and Judge, like the current team as is, got to the World Series. That makes you think they could get there next year, right? And before the Soto deal, there was, I don't know if they were the favorites in the AL, but they had to have been one of the favorites. Um, Now, probably not so much, but they can put themselves 100% in that conversation to still win this conference if, like you said, Cashman and Hal make moves that truly do
Mm-hmm.
benefit the roster.
The AL is it's
Um,
wide open. It's wide open, so
yeah,
they got to take
I would
advantage.
agree because
And
and
because
and
Judge isn't going to be in his prime for much longer, I give him 1 or 2 more years. Um,
yeah, and if you look across the AL as a whole, like who stands out to you, right?
right.
Like Cleveland had a very good season. Do you look at them as World Series contenders? Maybe they're probably in that like top five, maybe top three conversation, but no
Mm-hmm.
one else really in the AL Central. I mean, maybe the Royals. I don't know. And then you look out west, Houston's always a threat. The Rangers had a huge fall off. Seattle, like, and then there's Baltimore in the AL East and Boston and whatnot. So there's definitely not a clear cut favorite. I
Mm-hmm.
think in the NL, there is a clear cut favorite. Um, Spoiler alert, like when we do this episode, probably in a few months, when we make our predictions for, who makes the playoffs, who wins the World Series, all that, I got the Dodgers. I got no reason to not pick the Dodgers. After what you saw this year, after what you saw in the postseason, you know, I get it. Soto went to the Mets and the Mets were in the ALCS, right? Dodgers are still better, right? So, you know, I think the NL is a little bit more, even though it's better, like the
Mm-hmm.
teams are better, you feel like. I think there's still a clear cut winner there. And the AL is wide open, which the way I look at it, and you have to spin it this way after you just lost Soto, is like you make a few moves and you are right back in that conversation with like, maybe this team can do it in 2025. But
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the nail on the head. It's going to be the Dodgers until someone beats them, right?
yeah,
Um, and
not that
they,
somebody can't beat them,
yeah,
but
I would throw, anything could happen in the playoffs. Maybe the
yeah,
Phillies make a couple moves this offseason. The
yep,
Padres went 5 games. They were up 2-1 against them
yeah,
in the DS series. So I'm not saying the Dodgers can't be beaten, but they're going to be the favorite. Um, until someone does knock them out. So yeah, I just think it's gonna be tough. I think it's gonna be tough for the Mets, even with Soto. They still have some more work to do. I think,
yep.
especially to be better than the Dodgers because the Dodgers went out after winning the World Series, so they go out and get a former Cy Young winner, um, right? So they're still gonna make moves. They're probably. I would be
They're
surprised
not
if
done.
I would be surprised if Sasaki doesn't go to the Dodgers,
So
right?
would I.
Um, so yeah, it's gonna be a crazy off season. I think.
They're going to be better next
Um,
year. I'll say that now.
think so.
Is there any like what would tell you that they wouldn't be?
Um,
Do you think like it was
I
just
would
like
say like Mookie and
historic
Freddie are
stuff out of
kind of
Shohei?
aging. Freddie are kind of
Yeah,
aging, but like they'll show
maybe.
up in the playoffs though.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, and again, I
they
think
are
this
they
goes
already are
back
better than they
to
were last year. They already are.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
or
I think they'll
Otani
win
will
more
probably be
games.
pitching. Otani will probably be pitching, or maybe even playing the field some games.
Listen,
Um,
if you got Blake Snell and you're gonna go get the guy from Japan, like you might not even have to look at Otani and rely on him. Like in relief, maybe. I'm not gonna start. You don't need to at this point,
mm-hmm,
right? Does he need to? They're loaded.
mm-hmm,
So I mean, yeah, he'll definitely be pitching, I think, some next year, but I think they're gonna want his bat more than anything because I think top to bottom, their lineup is spectacular. And yes, I understand Met fans for our Mets fan listening. I hear a lot of them saying, kiss my ring, like it's ours next year. Because now you're gonna have kind of what like the Yankees may have had in New York with Soto and Judge in New York, where they're saying they're gonna have um Francisco Lindor and Soto. Obviously Judge is a better player. That's not taking anything away from Lindor, but I get the argument there, right? Um, but again, you gotta kind of have to go through the Dodgers for now, and I would say, I don't know. Do you think that the Mets are the best team in the NL East now,
I would
or do you still
I
put
would
Philadelphia?
I would say right now because Philadelphia has a lot of questions. I'm not saying, come opening day, the Phillies won't be the better team. But right now, I think Bohm's not signed to a team yet. I think Bryson Stott's not signed to a team yet. Um, I think the Phillies need to address some pitching, both in starting and in the pen. Braves have a lot of questions too. Acuna injury prone now. He's torn both of his ACLs. So that's not going to help his career. I don't think. Um, so yeah, like right now, Bray, I would have to admit, I would say the Mets are probably the favorite in the
That's
East right
fair.
now, but there's still a lot of unknowns, and then my answer might be different, week, 2 weeks, couple months from now.
Yeah,
So, but right now, I would say it's the Mets. I think they know their identity and who they are. Also, they had
yeah,
kind of caught lightning in a bottle the last few months of the season on that postseason run. Um, yeah, right now I'd give it to the Mets, but that could
yeah, and
change.
I think that that's fair. Um, I do trust Philadelphia. Their ownership is spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're gonna figure it out. Um, and they're gonna put a good team out there. They're not gonna see if they lose people, they're gonna replace them, and they're gonna replace them with great players. I know there've been talks about Bregman potentially ending up in Philadelphia. So I mean, again, we'll see. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I think I don't remember exactly what like Vegas said or even what we said, but we didn't have this team as the best team in the division, nor the second best team in the division last year. And yeah, they got to the NLCS, but you've got Juan Soto now. What more has been done besides adding one player, right? I'm not saying it can't be done. The Yankees effectively did it themselves. They went and got Juan Soto and they immediately got to a World Series. So I'm not saying it can't be done, but I think more work needs to be done there. And what's going to happen with Pete Alonso? I think that's a huge question mark for Mets fans. Stephen Cohen appears to be ready and able to open his pockets for whoever wants to come and who is worth his time. So, I mean, we'll see. But overall, I can't pick against the Dodgers right now unless obviously other historic or crazy stuff happens this free agency to make me think, yeah, the Mets lineup 1 through 9 might be better than the Dodgers. Until I see that, I'm still gonna pick the Dodgers, and it's not anything against the Mets. It's just where I'm at
Yeah,
um,
it's fair.
for now.
Yeah,
Go
I do
ahead.
have I do have a couple more things I wanted to address here. One of them is Braden. If you think the Mets, they were kind of it was like May and June, they were kind of really out of it. Like they're kind of counted out.
Yeah,
Um, but then I think it was July-ish.
yeah.
They really got
All Star
hot.
break.
Yeah,
Yeah,
post All-Star break. They really got hot and ended up going on that crazy run to the NLCS. Do you think Juan Soto is still on the Mets? Say they, don't make the playoffs, or they lose that first series against the Brewers, because the Brewers had them. The Brewers had them beat, and then Pete Alonso hit that 2-run home run to advance to the DS. That was just the wild card round. Um,
yeah.
so do you think that affected Soto's decision, or do you think that he was a Met no matter what? Because I feel like the Mets, like the fact that they made the NLCS, definitely had some sort of influence, because it kind of showed that they could win, and they're here to win.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, man. I think it was always it was always the Yankees and the Mets.
Right.
Even if the Mets missed the playoffs, it was still the Yankees and the Mets. Um, and I think I might have to disagree with you on the thing that like it had to do with the Mets getting to the NLCS. I think that definitely
Yeah.
helped
No, I'm
convince
not
him.
saying that was the whole reason, but I'm saying, like, if the Mets didn't go on that run, say they lose in the first round or they don't make the playoffs at all, like I feel like that might have influenced his decision a little bit.
I think it was the money. I think whoever threw him the most, he was going.
That's fair.
And I know that that might not be a popular take. But like the proof's in the pudding, right? Like he could have stayed with the Yankees. He knew that he could win with the Yankees. He knew that he would be a Hall of Famer with the Yankees. And all sorts of stuff, fun stuff like that. Yankees offered five less. Five less. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, and I'll be honest with you, like I think he wanted to be in a big market. I think he wanted to be on a team that he knew he could contend with. And I'm not saying like needed to like be in the NLCS last year, right? Like I think if Philadelphia would have thrown 800 mil at him, I think he would have been there. I think if the Dodgers throw 800 mil at him, I think he would have been in LA. I think if Toronto would have thrown 800 mil at him, I think he would have been a Blue Jay, right? Um, you know, maybe
At this
Toronto's a
point,
little bit different of an argument, but I think if Philadelphia
yeah.
would have thrown him more money than the Mets did, I think he would have chose Philadelphia
Okay. I see.
because
At this point, it's a fair take, because he literally went where the money was. Like we said, he
yeah,
was
and
already
it
in the
wasn't
Bronx. He was with the Yankees. Um,
yeah, and it wasn't like that the Yankees offered like far less. And it wasn't like, well, like, how's he going to turn down that offer from the Mets? He was going to make 50 to 100 million more than he would on any other team. Um, but the Yankees, shockingly, I never would have thought it would have been that high, had 760 on him, right?
yeah.
An additional year. But at that point, it's like, that doesn't even really matter, right? We're talking about 5 million over 16 years. It means virtually nothing. Um, I really do. I think no one was going to outbid the Mets. There was always a chance that another team could have. Um, But I think what the Yankees relied on was, dude, like you've done it here. Like you went to the World Series here. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like that was their big selling point was like the Mets last year, like you said, their record, you know, in May, they went 9-16 in May. Like they didn't really start playing great ball until the summer months. Even their July and August were shoddy. September they played really well. So it's one of those things where, you know, the Yankees argument at the end of the day was, yeah, we'll be able to like get you similar near what Stephen Cohen's going to offer, but like you could totally do it here
Yeah.
because we've done it before.
For $760 million, if he wanted to be a Yankee, he would have stayed. Right at the end of the day.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think if he wanted to be a Yankee, if the Yankees would have offered seven, 700 million or 710, I think if he wanted to be a Yankee, I think he still would have taken the money because what is that money
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, right?
Right.
Um, so I really do think it was money,
Yeah.
and I can't necessarily blame the Yankees for, you know, going all in, but you know, falling short by 5 million, I can't really be upset. You know what I mean? Like some
Hmm.
fans are,
No, I'm not
you
blaming
know,
the
people
Yankees
are
at
like,
all.
oh, we're the Yankees. Like,
No.
this would have never happened
That's another
back,
thing.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
But that's, to
Yeah.
me, in this case, illegitimate argument because we were 5 million off.
Hmm. That's another thing I want to get into real quick, but we got about 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
Is like the actual contract itself.
Yeah.
And also the fact Braden Juan Soto, we watched him play right field here, was iffy, right? He didn't have any
Yeah.
errors, but there were some plays there he should have made, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if he's getting paid 700 million. Um, but I just think he's probably going to be a DH 3 or 4 years from now. So we're really going to pay a DH $50 million a year. I just like I'm not mad at the Yankees for not outbidding the Mets because I think the Mets would have outbidded no matter what.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, just
I
another
also
thing
think that
I
the
wanted to point out. Like
Yankees,
I think like you can't pay a DH that much. But, like yes, Juan Soto is great, but he really doesn't have any. Doesn't even have any MVPs yet. He doesn't have any
yeah,
MVPs yet. I mean, he plays like an MVP, but yeah, go ahead. Does have a
yeah,
ring.
I
Give him that.
he does have a ring. He's played in two World Series. And he's a winner and he's clutching the playoffs, right? So like,
Yeah,
sure,
that's
like there's those arguments, but I think, and it's so tough to kind of get into it because it's so far down the road, but like I think he's pretty prideful on his defensive abilities, right? Like he's not like a guy that I feel like is just you're gonna be able to shove in the DH position like that. You know what I mean? I think he's gonna
yeah.
put up a fight. Um, and I think to a degree you're right. Like
He's a
his defense,
liability. He has a good arm. He has a
he has a
great
good arm.
arm, but like
He proved that on opening
tracking and
day.
fielding balls, he's a liability out there, in my opinion.
And who knows? Like maybe he can improve drastically on that in the off season, but he doesn't really like need to now. You know what I mean? Like he's just kind of like he's got his bread. The Mets didn't sign him because he's like an elite defender. They signed him
Mm-hmm.
because he's an elite hitter and a clutch hitter and has proven in the postseason time and time again that he can deliver. Um, so I mean, it's tough. It's tough if you're a Yankee fan because there's not anything really like him in the league. So of course you want him on your team. But I think in the long run, if the Yankees make a few moves, and we can get into it now or maybe a different episode, but like there's been a lot of chatter, especially like today in the past 2-3 hours about Max Fried. I think
Yeah,
that's something that
I got a notification on my phone like as we were recording here, and I just saw like the
yeah,
headline was like Freed. I saw Freed in Yankees, but it's just like the classic Yankees are going to offer a Freed 7 year deal. So
yeah, yeah.
7
And I
years is
don't
already
even know how old
31,
he's.
but we'll
That's
see.
just how it works in this league. Like he's
Yeah,
just gonna get a big deal like that. Um, Corbin Burns is available. Christian Walker maybe at first base. I don't know. Do Do you maybe try and make a move for Vladdy from Toronto next year when he's a free agent?
Mhm.
Um, it's one of those things where like that money, yes, would have been probably well spent if you're the Yankees because chances are they would have won a World Series in the next
Yeah,
3 to 5 years.
you're not gonna find another Soto for another 10, 15
Yeah,
years.
Judge and Soto, like if that didn't win a ring, that would have been shocking.
Mhm.
Thinking back on it like 20 years later or something like that. Um, but if you go and you make there's decent free agents out there. If you make if you play your cards right and hopefully, as Yankee fans, if Cashman and Powell are seeing what just went down, um, hopefully it lights a fire under them and just kind of gets
Yeah,
them going. It's like, let's do
yeah,
it. Like, yeah, we lost Soto, but like he's one of many players on the team. I'm not trying to like dilute what Soto did this year, but they still got there as a team. Um, you know,
yeah.
we'll see what happens.
I have a lot of thoughts on like the
The free
Yankees.
agency.
Yeah, just like the Yankees overall, like the state of their 2025 roster.
Yeah,
But like I can't really speak to it until they make these signings and all that. So we'll get
yeah,
into it in another episode. Because
yeah,
like at this
for
point,
sure.
it's just basically predictions, and we don't even really know. But yeah,
Yeah,
Fried would be nice. Burns would be nice. A nice, good first baseman would be nice. But yeah, think that about
yeah,
wraps it up here in the
yeah,
yard.
yeah. And
Kind
and
of.
we'll definitely be back on this subject because
Yep.
as baseball season ramps up a little bit more,
Winter
we'll be
meeting
making more
started.
predictions as far
Start
as
tomorrow, I
where
think.
yeah, where we expect teams to land. As far as like standings wise, who's pretenders, who's contenders, at least our thoughts before the season starts. And you'll know then how we feel about the Yankees,
Yeah.
right? Because if the Yankees play their cards right, you still feel that this team you know, can be impressive next season. Minus Juan Soto.
Yeah. Tough
Cool.
loss, but got to move on.
You have to move on and you have to hope they play their cards right.
Right.
Because $760 million could be used for a lot of other pieces if you play your cards right. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. And we'll see you next time here in the yard. Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
Talkman to
See ya.
Sockman. Talkman to Sockman. Jesus.